Aloha, Namaste, Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum, Shalom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to each and every one of you. I want to thank you so much for joining us yet again on Divine Soul Journey. And my name is Dianne Ojar. It is my privilege to be here with you today and to have my incredible guest, someone I've known for so long, love her, and I admire her so much. She's so smart, beautiful, and humble. And she has the most amazing parents you could possibly think of. She's laughing already, I could hear. As a disclosure, I would like to say this is not about religion. We respect your beliefs and your faith. And if you choose to partake of the practices we do, awesome. If not, awesome as well. If you have any questions, you definitely can contact us at dsjshow2020@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Now, I have known this amazing woman for so long. You know, she's someone I work with. I admire her. Like I said, you know, she's gone through so much. And you're going to hear her story. My apologies here for the music in the background. It's okay. It's all these little things that we do. I just want to make sure you can hear her clearly about her story. Her name is Tazim Kanji, and Tazim is originally from Kenya. And I've known Tazim for about, oh my goodness, maybe 20 years? Possibly. I don't know. Time has gone by so fast. But I'm not going to steal her thunder. I want you to hear her life story. And I know there are many out there who will resonate. And why she's here today is to teach people like myself to have more discipline with this disease, this condition, which is reversible, by the way, and can be cured if you have a discipline. She has been someone who has been given a mission on this earth to share and to help others as well. She has survived through a double transplants. And she's going to talk about that. Welcome to Divine Soul Journey, Tazim.
Thank you so much, Dianne, for that wonderful introduction. I'm blushing from all the compliments.
I wanted to say more, but I keep it quiet.
Thank you.
My God.
So I'm going to talk to the audience. You can call me Taz. I mean, just refer to me as Taz. But I'm just going to start my journey from when I was a child with diabetes. But I lived with type 1 diabetes for 45 years. And the reason I say I lived with type 1 diabetes is because I was fortunate and blessed to have a double transplant, which was my kidney and my pancreas, in 2018. And so now I have the freedom to eat whatever I like. I have the freedom to basically live a normal life without insulin, without having to test frequently. And I feel so much better, but it came at a heavy price. It came with a lot of complications, and that's the story of my journey. So I was, as Dianne mentioned, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya in 1968. And in 1974, I developed type 1 diabetes. Before that, they didn't know what it was. It was undiagnosed. My parents moved to Canada for a little while. And because they were from Africa and the doctors here, didn't understand, I started to exhibit the symptoms of the type 1 diabetes, like frequent urination, constant thirst. I was very frail and weak. So they just assumed it was a tropical disease, and that was ruled out. And then after that, they said it was cancer, and that was ruled out. And, it was a series of bad luck and just bad signs coming along there when they first came here. And they didn't really know. So they struggled with the the climate then being in the States, immigrants were not really welcomed in Canada at that time. There's a lot of racism. Things were not really good. So they moved back, and it was, I think it was in a way divine intervention, because so many things happened that I really, if I had to tell you, there were so many things that happened that sort of pushed them back. And when they arrived here, I was getting sicker with my diabetes, and eventually my mom took me, she saw a sign that said Dr. Cooper, she took me to the doctor. He was from England, and the minute she told him my symptoms, he knew straight away. So he did a urine test, and I was admitted to the Nairobi hospital, where I spent a month learning about my diabetes. But the reason I mention this is because I lived in a time where really diabetes was unheard of. I mean, they didn't even have the medical intervention we have today as far as testing and glucometers. I didn't have a glucometer. So, even carbohydrates, which diabetes is something that has to really be carefully monitored, because whatever you eat gets converted into sugar, and that's the job of the pancreas to do that with insulin. And that sugar then gets used up as energy. But if you're not a diabetic, that's the case. If you are diabetic, you don't produce any insulin, so that sugar starts to get stored up in your bloodstream and causes devastating damage. So it's not a difficult thing to manage as long as you take the time and do the hard work to understand what diabetes is, and that's really important. So if we fast forward, I went to high school. I lived a very good life, a very privileged life. I did everything. My parents never made me feel like I was diabetic. They just treated me very normally, which was actually a blessing, because I didn't grow up thinking I was a burden or I had any problems. I just thought, okay, I take a shot and I just avoid sugar and everything's fine. And that was the general mentality in the 1970s. It was very carefree and careless. You just went with the flow. You didn't question things. No one talked about the complications that include blindness is one of the leading causes for diabetes, and so is amputation because of the neuropathy, lack of sensation in your feet. And then, of course, there's the heart problems, which leads to stroke, and then renal failure, kidney disease, which is again, one of the leading causes of diabetes. So I went to university when I was 26. I backpacked across Europe. I was very independent. I drove. I traveled alone. I did everything just like a normal person. I didn't even think that diabetes was a problem in my life. It wasn't a problem. But then when I was 27, I started to exhibit some of the complications, and that's when my life changed, because all of a sudden now it had got to a point where I started to develop severe retinopathy, which was with my eyes. There was a lot of problems there, and I had to get laser. I ended up losing the vision in my left eye, and in my right eye I'm partially sighted. And then after 6 months of that, I developed bilateral Charcot joint, which is a condition that is caused by diabetic neuropathy, the lack of sensation. So in just simple terms, it's basically you don't feel when you're walking, so you could have a fracture, and you keep walking on it, and it's just that constant trauma to the foot eventually collapses the foot, and you can have some deformity, which happened for me on both feet. And so, and then a few months later, that I started to get the kidney disease. So my kidney function was going from 73 to 33% to finally 5% when I started dialysis in 2016. But I was 27 years old, and for me, that was, when I heard that news, it traumatized me. When the doctors told me that this is what's going to happen to you, like I felt like my whole world has collapsed, and I lost my purpose. I went into a very dark place, and I had lost my faith and hope, and I had lost my purpose in life. And it was a very dark place to be, and I just didn't have any motivation. I didn't want to do anything, but I had my family's support, and I did have my belief in the powers above. Like I strongly believe in that. Like sometimes you're so down, and you just need to give your problems to someone else to take care of it. And so I put my faith in my doctors and God, and my family was there always to support me. And even though I faced, I was not confident, I lost my self-esteem, and I was mourning the death of my past life, so to speak. Like I wanted to go back to how things were, and that was not going to happen, because whatever was lost was lost. And it took me a long time. It was a long process. It took me 10 years to heal and to get to the place where I'm truly happy today, because today I can, even though I've lost the vision, I don't use the cane, and I'm able to function. I cook, I work, I do things, I write, I read, I do everything. and I walk. I do 25,000 steps a day, and I use the elliptical, and I do all kinds of things that just make me happy. I found my inner peace, and that's what it's all about. It's not comparing yourself to what someone else has. You just have to find your inner peace, and that was the whole process that was towards recovery for me in my journey. And so when I had the feet problem, and then I found out I had to start dialysis in 2016, they told me to start in 2000. But I decided to, I could either just give up on life, or I could just say, okay, I need to really study my diabetes in its entirety, like everything. And that's when I did. I went back and I studied what I was eating, how I was taught to eat, which included, a lot of carbohydrates, because that's what was dictated at that time, 10 to 12 servings of carbohydrates. And I started to do experiments like, okay, if I don't eat the carbs, what happens? Because I studied my diabetes to an extent where I understood it fully. And when you understand why, you tend to, it makes sense, and you just don't do the things that are harmful to you. So I started that journey, and through self-improvement, I was able to reverse, not the type 1 diabetes, because you can't reverse type 1 diabetes. There's a difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 diabetics don't produce any insulin. Type 2 diabetics do still produce some insulin, so they can actually reverse it through exercise and eating right. So for me, it wasn't just a journey of health. It was a journey of being it was the physical, it was the emotional, it was the spiritual, the mental, everything. And I had to search and discover myself in the process. That's what it taught me. So I learned about myself. I learned my weaknesses, my strengths. I learned how to relate to my negative emotions, and I had to embrace them, because those negative emotions are what drove me to make positive changes. I didn't want to go back to that dark place. I didn't like to be in that dark place, because that dark place just reminded me of, there's no freedom, there's no positive. I know I always say with positivity, there's possibility. So, and I didn't expect to do this in a day. I knew it was going to be a process. So I even, started working, and for me, I did that because I knew that I needed to get out there and not get out of my comfort zone. I knew I had to do things that were positive. I started exercising, I started eating right, and I was able to prolong my dialysis from 2002 to 2016. And eventually, I did have to have the dialysis. And even then, when I was on dialysis, I didn't have a negative attitude. I always felt, I'm here, and this too shall pass, and I have a beacon of hope of my transplant. So for me, everything was positive, and that's how I looked at it. And acceptance
Beautiful.
was the major thing.
My goodness.
Acceptance in my journey was the primary thing. Like anything in life that you have, if you don't accept and you resist, you're never ever going to get to the place where you need to do. If you look at the past and say, what if you live in regret and remorse, it doesn't help, because it just makes you feel worse about what happened. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself. Like, that's the main thing. You have to say, okay, you know what? I did the best that I could do. And whatever I did, whatever happened, it wasn't intentional. It was just the way it was. But now what? Now what am I going to do? Am I just going to sit there and give up, or am I going to make the best of what I have? I couldn't worry about what I had lost. I had to think about all the things I could gain. And so, in retrospect, I just think that it's made me a stronger person, and definitely I feel like I found myself in my journey. I found out who I was. I found out my strengths, and I'm proud of who I am, because I feel so strong. I feel very invincible.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm a warrior, and I feel like I've
you
survived.
Are.
It's not. But I didn't. You see, that's the thing. I came from a place where I didn't feel that way. I was broken. I was shattered, and I just, I remember going to bed sometimes and saying, when it first happened, when you hear this news that you can't drive anymore, you could face possible amputation. You might be blind in the future. You're going to have to be on a machine. I didn't know what to think. For me, I was shattered, and I used to pray and say, "Can you just take me?" And when I wake up, I don't want to face the next day, right?
Yeah.
And I no longer think that. Yeah, I no longer think that way, because you become stronger, and resilience comes with experience, and the more you use it, the more experience you have, the more it becomes stronger. So
yeah, that's well, Taz. let's go for a moment. Well, I mean, that's powerful. My dad also was diabetic since in his 20s, and half of my family is and myself. My dad was on insulin. I've always known him as insulin. Then my mom was on the pills in maybe her 50s or something like that. I can't remember. However,
Yeah.
the fact is, it's I don't know how he developed it, but is it let's go back step by step for a moment. So when you do you know the cause of the diabetes?
Well, it's interesting because, like I said, we came to Canada, and of course, the vaccine. One of the things they have noted in studies that vaccines and viruses can cause diabetes, but so can trauma. So I know when I was in Vancouver, when we did come here, I was hit in the back with a bicycle, and it was really a high impact hit, because what happened was, although there was like I could move and everything, so there was a big bruise on my side, but internally there was damage, because every time I peed, there was blood, and that's when I was taken to the hospital, and they thought it was a tropical disease or leukemia. So I believe that could have been something that caused it. Although some of the doctors I've spoken to say they don't think it's very likely, but they do. They have done studies to show that trauma could possibly be linked to that, although they
Absolutely.
haven't. Yeah, although they haven't followed it through, because when I was doing my research, that's what they said. Because I just wanted to know, could that be a possibility? And it's there. So, sometimes you just have to wonder, like I do. I wonder, like, what? Because juvenile
I
diabetes
mean,
is not in my family.
well, here's the thing. When I was pregnant with my girls, with my kids, I have a boy too. I was gestational as well, and my grandmother and my grandparents, and they, not all of them, but some of them, they all had it in the family, my uncle and so forth. So, and here's the thing about it: some of them do and some don't. My sister and they, who are a little bit more active than I am, they don't have it. But at the other side of it, now with modern medicine, and yes, trauma has a lot. It's very symbolic as to, and it's also giving you a mission, but you have to live through this whole thing. And yours is, like I said, the exception to the rule to many because of the mentality, but the mindset, the positive mindset that you have. So I understand what you're saying in terms of with myself now too. When I was taking the medication, and please don't do this because I stopped taking my medication about 2 years now. I was feeling so sick with that medication. That got me worse than what anything else. And
And
my
this is for.
discipline. Sorry.
Sorry, your discipline. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was so sick that I feel so much better without it. Is that the right thing to do? Probably not. But when the metformin, the Germinate, and all that stuff, that was a girl. I felt like I wanted to just jump in a lake half the time. I could imagine for you. Now, when I met you, Taz, you were working the night shift. We were both working for a bank. You were working the night shift, and we were sort of cross paths a little bit, and then eventually came. And I remember how you used to live behind the posts in this dark space with all this bulky clothes. And I'm saying this for a reason, not embarrassing. Bulky clothes, and you were hiding behind the clothes. You were hiding. Let me tell you something. If you guys see Taz and her body, you'll understand. Okay? She was hiding that amazing body that she has because it's the way she was feeling. And I said to her many times, I don't want to see you dressed like this. You better get some clothes. And you never dress like that again. And forget that.
You're right. I was, for me, going to work was a distraction, but it was also, I was very isolating. My home was my sanctuary. So for me, it was, just going to work, doing what I needed to do, and happy to do it. Come home, and I was safe. I didn't want to socialize with anyone because I had a hard time accepting what had happened to me. And so for me, it was like, if I can't accept what had happened to me, how would I expect the world to accept me? And when I came to that realization, it was like, okay, you know what? I need to build my confidence. And that's when it came. It's something you have to realize for yourself. It doesn't happen if you don't work on yourself. Like, you have to realize that I don't want to live like this. This is not nice. But then, you have to be realistic in your expectations too, and say, okay, I know it's going to take time. And that's what I did. I knew that I had consistency, like just like you test your blood sugars every day. I had to think positive every day. I had to make an effort to exercise every day. I had to make an effort to be mindful and careful about what I was eating, why I was eating it. Why do I want to eat this? Like, is it just because I'm depressed and I just want to eat? Or is it because I'm not hungry, so why am I eating it? And understanding that everything you put in your body is either going to be good or bad for you, but it's the same as your mind, and it's the same for what you do. Like, you have to embrace your body and in mind, spirit, everything. And then it's a balance of all those things that make you whole.
Yeah.
And even though I was so broken, I felt whole because I worked on myself. So now today, I no longer feel that way, and those feelings don't even emerge. And if they do at times, I just basically eject them from my life. It's like I don't want to go down that path, and I replace it with something positive.
Absolutely.
So I'll
Absolutely.
go for a walk, or I'll
Yes.
get on the elliptical, or I'll call a friend who's positive, or watch something funny, or do some of my writing, or something that just gives you. Doesn't matter what you do, but it just gives you some purpose, and you feel like, okay, I don't better than just dwelling in that negativity, which sometimes can happen.
Well, girl, I don't know anybody who's more disciplined than you are. I mean, you had times when you would be at the gym. You were so dedicated to the gym, and I remember when your legs when you were in the brace.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yes.
trying to
Yes.
dwell this for people to
No,
understand.
but
This
it's
is a
part of that.
process, as well as when you didn't know why your ankle was
Mhm.
collapsed, and because you didn't know the bones, and then you'll be off. And but I
Yeah.
have to say, we always laugh at this. Taz and I always laugh at this. It was serious. So she used to sit next to me, and I used to watch her like there was like three or four of us in a little in a corner, and we always kept eye and tabs on her. And I would sense, and I would know, they all would, but where I sat, I could see her, and sometimes we see her dozing off, and we know she was going into a coma,
Yeah, diabetic blood
diabetic
sugar. Yeah,
coma, right?
hypoglycemia.
And it happened many times, but we would just know, and then we'll call, and of course, all these. Why did you tell that story? Because we always have to laugh about that story, because here's the reason why. She's in a
Yeah.
coma. She can't speak, but she's laughing her head off and making fun of it.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things when you have a low sugar. I mean, it happens. I mean, it's nothing to laugh about because it can be very
No,
serious.
I
Like, you
wasn't talking
can't.
about that. I was talking about the guys. Okay.
Yeah, no, no, I know, but this, and the reason I say that is because, yeah, I could laugh about this one because I was at home when it happened, and I was with my family, and of course, very comfortable. I was in my room, and and I remember all I heard was voices. I couldn't hear anything else, and it was just, when you have a low sugar like that, you can't really. It's like you're in a coma. Like, your eyes are shut, you can't open them, you can't speak, but yet you can hear everything around you. And so I heard like the panic from my parents. I heard the paramedics come in, and then they gave me a glycogen shot, which is glucose, so that I could, gain my senses back. And when they did that, I remember looking, and I had this smile on my face because there were like six gorgeous men in my room. They were all good looking. The two paramedics, the two firemen, and I think it was two police officers. So that was one time where I didn't mind having a low sugar. So that's, I think, what you're talking about. Why it was
No, no,
funny.
that happened at home. I remember that, but I also talk about work. It happened at work as well,
Oh, you're
because we would
talking
have
about when I.
we used to have blood, sugar packets and candy and some juice there just to give a little sip. So the reason I'm saying this, it was, we laugh at it because it's about the guys. If you know Tazim and these guys, hey, you gotta see Tazim. But I'm saying this. Here's the reason I'm saying this: we cannot take everything for granted. We have to look back, and if we can't humor ourselves of some of the things we've gone through and say, yeah, I survived that. If I can
Mhm.
survive it, you can survive that too as well. And now you've come to a place, let's move forward. We have come to a place whereby you had a double transplant after so many years of
Mhm.
waiting, not knowing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I first heard the news that, in 2000, when they told me I had renal disease. I really didn't know what to think. I'm like, what do you mean I have renal disease? And then they explained it, and I had to learn about it. And, so again, the culprit is diabetes, of course, and that causes it. But, my doctor, Dr. Tobe, he was amazing at Sunnybrook, and he always told me, he says, you'd make a great transplant patient. So he already put that seed in my mind that eventually I'm going to get a transplant. So in the meantime, my primary mission was to just make sure that I don't go on dialysis. I mean, I made that my mission. I was like, oh God, I'm not going to, because it terrified me. The thought of being on a machine it was a life support. Without that machine, I couldn't survive. So, and I remember, every time I would pass the dialysis unit and I'd look at them, even though I was getting stronger, a part of me would break down. Like I would cry when I would see them because I'm like, I can't imagine myself doing that. So for me, I had my goal was like, I'll never go on dialysis. And I made sure that I ate properly and I did the things that I needed to. And I mean, I couldn't, eventually I had to surrender to dialysis. But in the meantime, I was so determined not to. So when I finally had to have the dialysis, I even tried to get out of it. I'm like, I'll take care of myself. I'm not going to do this. And they're like, no, your kidney function's, 5%. And usually if your kidney function falls below 10%, that's when they start dialysis. So I knew now. I said, okay, now I have to do it. But, the amazing thing is that I didn't think I would make it this far in terms of my health, but every year was like a blessing. It's like, okay, I'm doing this, and then eventually I thought, okay, I'm going to be there. And then when it happened, it started again with the transplant. Now it was like, okay, it's going to be 3 to 5 years before you get your transplant. So just being in dialysis and watching some of my friends pass away, like you're with them, and then the next day you see an empty chair, they're no longer there. And you think to yourself, like, is that going to be me? Because it's true, like a lot of dialysis patients get sick, and even though they're on the transplant list, they don't necessarily qualify or make it. Only 11% of patients on dialysis actually get a transplant. So when it finally did happen and I got the call, I didn't know what to think. I was in shock, and I remember just, I was excited, and at the same time I was very scared, and I was like, okay, now the transplant, am I going to live? Am I going to die? What's going to happen? I had written letters to my family members when I was on dialysis. I said, one day they'll find them if I don't make it. But I had the hope that I would survive. I didn't think about death, but you do. You sort of, it crosses your mind, and you sort of wonder, like, suppose I don't make it, right? So, but again, and when I had my transplant, I had I came home after a week. I couldn't believe everything had gone well. And then I collapsed after 6 hours, and I had a 1 kilo blood clot, they found out, and they rushed me. And, at that point, everyone thought I wasn't going to make it because it was a 7.5 hour surgery, but they had to reopen me and remove that clot. And at that point, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it or not because I felt horrible. The pain was so severe. My family members were concerned, and they were in tears, and no one knew. But I survived that. So I don't think that it wasn't my time. Let's just put it that way, because I'm still here. So, but it's hard for me to believe. I mean, I was conditioned to know that I was going to have a transplant. So when it happened, I felt blessed. I just felt blessed. It's not like I was like, oh my God, this is happening, because it was more like a shock for me, and now that I've had it, it's been almost 3 years, since I've had my double transplant. I feel so grateful because I feel what it's like to be healthy. You see, when you have diabetes as young as I did at the age of 7, or 6, even if it started before that, you pretty much your whole life you feel tired all the time, but you become so immune to feeling tired that it's normal. You just think it's normal. Okay, I feel tired. That's normal. In dialysis, you're always tired. I couldn't even open a bottle of water. Yeah, okay, fine. You get used to being tired, but you push yourself because you know that if you accept being tired as, oh, I'm going to lie down, then you stop. It's kind of like being, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Speed, where the person says, if you go below this,
yes, you have to you have to control it. You have to be disciplined.
You have to be constantly motivating yourself, because
That's
if you just say, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore, it's all over. So for me, that was never an option. I had to just keep going and going and going, and that's what I did. And then finally, now, after my transplant, it took a year because I was like, wow, I'm not feeling, where's my quality of life? But it's because of that, the clot that I had, and I went through, a lot in the hospital. I lost tons of weight because I was really in bad shape when it happened. There was more bleeding and there was more complications, and then eventually, after a year, I started to feel the surge of energy, and now it's like, it's there, and it's amazing.
Beautiful.
Like, it really is. Yeah, I feel like what a blessing. Like, I feel very normal.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this: was the kidney and the pancreas from the same source? One of the same
Yes.
source, or
Yeah, it was from my deceased donor, and I
Mhm.
remember that also. Yeah, from the same person, and I remember
that made a
when
difference, right? That made a difference being
it
from the
does.
same source.
Yeah. I mean,
Obviously.
well, they could do it from a different person. I mean, they could, but in this case, I think it's more compatible if it is from the same source.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what? Before we go to the forgiveness practice, your parents, your family, your brother, your parents, oh my goodness, your nieces, nephew, you have some of the most incredible family. I know I've always said this. They're some of my favorite people. I know I don't see them very often.
No, I know.
But your parents are like parents everybody wants.
Yeah, they are.
Everybody wants
blessed.
your parents, to tell you the truth. Everybody who meets your parents wants your parents.
I wouldn't have got this far if it wasn't for my family and, my parents, my brother, everyone that's involved. Like, they have been my pillars of strength through this, from the beginning, from when I was a child to, like, they're always there for me. And I know that,
you're their
they
princess.
have my back.
You're their princess.
Well, it's not, it's a blessing, really it is a blessing. Because,
it is, but you're their princess. Taz, it's you have taught me so much, and hearing all of this, and there are times when you had shut off yourself. There were times when you used to go for treatment in another country for months. Every year you have done everything. Yes, you've been fortunate. You had to sacrifice a lot to get to where you are, and it's like I said, the world needs to hear your story, because we are not given all of these struggles and obstacles and everything else just by chance. There's a reason for it. And sometimes, you wake up one day when you're 70 years old. Taz is not 70. When you're 70 years old and decide, this is when my life starts. I got to do something. I got to make a difference. I'm here for a reason. And, discovering that, and you have to go through the motions. And I just know it's not easy what you went through, because I know bits and pieces, because I always say no one except your parents and your family, but no one ever could imagine what your story is, because they're not living in your shoes or in your house 24/7.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we don't know what anyone's story is. I mean, they can tell us, we can empathize, but unless you walk in someone's shoes, like you really, literally walk, you can't understand. But I think one common denominator that everyone who's going through health issues, whether it's cancer or diabetes or anything else that's really, life-changing, is that I've noticed that we all share the same will to go on and will to live and will to fight. And, we become very humble, and we have a lot of humility, and we also become compassionate, not just to ourselves, but also to what the world around us, because you see life in a different lens. It's no longer important, the possessions and the tangible things in life. It's more like, just having that little piece of happiness, finding that, right?
Absolutely.
And you see things in a very simple way, like having love, having family, having good health. Even if you couldn't get out of bed, but now you can walk a little bit. That's progress.
Gratitude.
And that's amazing,
Gratitude is huge.
Exactly.
It's
very, and you have to always be gratitude. I mean, that's one thing that got me through this, right? Is always having that appreciation. You can't be hateful. You have to just, be very grateful, really. And
Absolutely.
and
Okay.
that's the thing. Like you can't be angry. I mean, those are normal emotions. You go through that, but you can't live your life in anger
Who are you
every
going to be?
day.
But here's the thing, Taz. Who are you going to be angry with?
You can
It's
be
like
angry with
nobody caused this on you per
no,
se.
no one does. But
Exactly, right?
there are some people who choose to blame, right?
Yes.
They
Well, yes,
blame,
of
and
course.
they,
Of course.
and because they haven't accepted it, right? And it's
Right.
very hard, and I understand that, but somehow to have peace in life, I think you need
Yes.
to accept. And that's why
Take
I always say with anything,
responsibility. Take responsibility.
and take responsibility, take ownership. Exactly.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
here's one of the things I do know, because we want to get to the forgiveness practice and the blessing. Here's one of the things I do know. While you're going through all of this, the transplant, you know, before, after, and we're not going to go into that, but just to say, your family, your parents had gone through some challenges and struggled in their own for themselves. So while
Mhm.
they're going through this, their own life
Mhm.
challenges, health wise, they also had you that they
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
look after as well. So now it
Yeah.
becomes a family, a support. And
Well,
of, mhm.
yeah, it's true. Like I have a my journal that I write about sometimes, but it's because in 2015, my mom was in 2015 November she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then in 2016 I started dialysis, and then in 2017 my father had prostate cancer, and at that time my brother wasn't here. So here we are, the three of us, and they were giving me, we were giving my mom the support she needed, and then all of a sudden, she shifted from giving me the support, and then when my dad came, it was, and we somehow managed, and my dad would go for his radiation treatments at Sunnybrook where I was, and then he'd pick me up after dialysis, and we'd go home together, and my mom would be there, she'd cook. So we
She's
somehow
a
managed.
good cook. Oh my
She is a good
gosh.
cook.
She
So
is just like
she,
you. You're a fabulous
yeah.
cook. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I started cooking when I was very young, and so yeah, it's second nature to me now. But yeah, it's yeah, you somehow go through those things, but maybe that's where I learned all this, because my parents never complained. You see, they never complained. They just sort of, okay, always no problem. We'll get it done, and it's fine. And so I learned from them, I think, not to complain, to accept,
Absolutely.
and
But one of the
to
things,
have a positive attitude.
yeah, but one of the things I do know is that your family, the family that prays together stays together. The family that
Stays
has dinner
together.
together stays together. Well, this is one family that
Yeah,
does
yeah,
everything together. The tea time, the
yeah.
cooking time, they all contribute. But what I want to do now is I want to do a forgiveness practice.
Mhm.
And we'll probably do a simple one. I know this is all new for you. So,
Yeah, it is.
however, you know what? Let's do what we do best. So,
Okay.
for those who are just joining us, we're here on the Divine Soul Journey with Tazim Kanji, a good friend of mine who has had double transplant in pancreas and kidneys. And you got to go back and listen to the story. And there's so much. And you'll hear from Tazim, hopefully going forward with her writings, with her memoirs, and, just doing what she's put on earth to do. And she's discovering that right now. So we want to give all the love and support and the energy in order to do so. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out to Zima, I'm sure she's, if anybody has as a situation like this, I'm sure she'll be happy. So just reach out to us as dsjshow2020@gmail.com. So
Yes.
those who resonate and would like to partake of this, awesome. If not, awesome as well. So Tizine, this is very simple.
Mhm.
This is not about religion or anything to that effect. So you can choose an area in your life that you want to get a blessing for. It could be emotion, it could be physical pain, it could be mental, it could be finance, it could be anything you want. But again, or it could just be, protection, to build up your immunity, whatever it is, whatever
Mhm.
it is, right? You choose. Or if you don't know, just leave it up to heaven to decide. Let Allah,
Mhm.
heaven, whoever, to decide.
Mhm.
Plain and simple. It's not about religion.
Okay.
So you can put one hand in your lower abdomen under your navel there, and one hand
Okay.
where your do you know about chakras, right?
Yes.
Okay, so on your fourth chakra, that's by the
Okay.
message, we call it by the heart, the message center, we call it.
Mhm.
So you can close your eyes and you can take some deep breaths and just relax. And is it okay? I have to ask permission. Is it okay, Tazim, for you to do this, for me to offer a blessing for you today?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, also, I would like you to ask your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, your soul, for permission. Give yourself permission. Always give yourself permission to do things. So I'm going to do an invocation, then we're going to do a forgiveness practice, and then we're going to do the blessing. There we go. Now, how in Mandarin means hello. It also means all is good. So you're going to hear me say it different times. I'll ask you to say your name in 3 times, Tazim. And I explain English as well. So here we just close your eyes and focus on your heart. Now, although you may be thinking of other places in your body, you can put one hand there, keep one in your lower abdomen, or you can keep it in your heart. However, your body knows where it wants to get the healing. Heal your heart and you melt all blockages. So, here we go. How, dear divine source soul, thou, they're all my mothers and fathers in heaven and heavenly beings. And we call on all beings in spiritual realm. You can call on those that you are connected with. Tazim, for those who are listening out there, you can call on yours. Tazim will get their blessing. You will get a splash or flash of it for our audience. So you call on whoever you connect with. And also the outer souls, the moon, the stars, the sky, the galaxies, the cosmos, the Mother Earth, and more. Then you call on your soul. Then you can also ask your treasures. You have treasures and gifts inside of you that was given to you. You may or may not realize it. But you could just say, there are all my light treasures in my lower abdomen, which is that's the center that hosts it. Please do activate. You may not understand that, but you were given that. I guarantee you that. And I'm just going to call on my healing hands. They're my Tao Da healing hands. The Tao Da basically means it's a Tao, the source, nourishment, greatest love. That's basically what it means. So what we're going to do is do the forgiveness practice now. So we're going to ask and call all the souls that Tazim or any of us, that my ancestors and I have hurt in any lifetimes, in any realms, through thought, speech, doing, actions, anything whatsoever, in any areas of our life. We ask forgiveness in all realms. And for those souls who have hurt us in any areas of our life, through any source whatsoever, in any lifetimes, we give forgiveness. So now consider our debt has been paid. It's cancelled. We no longer owe anyone. The karma has been cancelled. So now we're going to do the blessing. So dear divine source Tao, please offer a blessing as appropriate. Tazim, say your name 3 times, your full name.
Tazim Kanji. Tazim Kanji. Tazim Kanji.
Thank you. So just keep focusing on your heart or the area that you want, but keep your hand on your heart. And offer a blessing to Tazim for the area that she has requested her blessing for. And to please transform all the negative darkness and negative information that's been given to her in her soul, heart, mind, and body, which is all Shenshi Jin. And this every single cell has a Shenshi Jin and a soul, a heart, and mind. Into positive light, beautiful light, and virtue into all the areas. Thank you. Blessing starts. My soul's language, then soul song. You just visualize golden light coming down from the source into your heart, into the area that you want the blessing for. If not, just focus on your heart. Just keep breathing. How? Blessing ends. Thou hands rest. Put your hands together in your prayer position, however you choose to do your prayer position. You can put it together, your hands, you put it in your laps, whatever it is you choose, more comfortable with. And you say how, all it means all is good. And we're going to thank, be grateful, show gratitude, respect, thankful. So we say how, thank you, divine Tao source. Thank you all, Father, mothers and fathers and spiritual realm, our heaven committee, everyone who came to support us in all the realms. Thank you, my Tao healing hands. Thank our souls, thanks our treasures. I thank you, Master Shah, who's the one who gave us the opportunity to do all of this. Very powerful. Thank you. Love you. We say everything in three for the divine, for your divine soul, divine, our soul, and our body. Thank you. Please continue to give gratitude and thanks however you choose to. You can say a prayer in your own way, whatever it is. Take a moment. Count this blessing, count this blessing. And when we finish, you're going to say Gun Song. Gun Song means all is good. And for those souls who came, they need to go home and rest in their abode, humble abode. And always bow down your head when you do this. Take some deep breaths. When you're ready, open your eyes. And you may feel something, you may not. You may feel something. It takes about 3 days for all this to integrate. The slightest thing. So, Taz, did you feel anything? You want to share anything? It could be yes, could be no.
No, I just felt some peace.
Good. How does it? Yeah. Where? In which area?
Just in my head area, actually.
Good. And maybe that's where you needed some healing as well. Yeah. And definitely there is, and I'll share some resources with you later on. However, it's all these things, and you might feel the energy and the healing passing through your body. Even if you feel zero, does not mean that nothing is happening. You will only get the level that you need right now in your body. Some people feel it dramatically. Some people, I could feel it in my spine, my back, I always do, and so forth. So I want to say, just being in that peaceful moment, because it's always nice to be peaceful. What would you like to say and wrap up with our audience here today?
I just want to say that it was, it was nice to be here today and just to share my story, and hopefully it provides some inspiration and, a reminder to everyone that, things sometimes seem so bad, but really, just like this, just like the sunset, just like the sun rises every day, there's always hope. There's going to come nighttime, and those are moments of darkness, and then the sun comes up in the morning. So every day is different, and maybe today may not be so bright, but then tomorrow will be. So it's important to have hope and faith and hold on to that, because sometimes we think the worst things, but when you look at it from another point of view, there's also blessings in everything, despite you thinking it's the worst situation.
Absolutely. There is, of course, everyone knows about yin and yang, the night, day, black, white, up, down. Well, here's the thing. If a ball goes up, if you throw a ball, it must come down. If you bounce a ball, it must come down. If you have something that happens to you and you're unfortunate, it's unfortunate that you go through things. You gotta look at the glasses always full. I do.
Yes, exactly.
The sky could be falling down, and I would say that I'll find a positive. It may sound silly to some, but you got to know around the corner there's always a turn, and that's what happened to you. So if you give up, then of course you never see the light of day.
No.
In the way the light of day.
Yeah, I always say that doing nothing is just as good as giving up. So you have to do something, but something that's positive, not something that's negative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to fill up, create that beautiful. There is positive karma and there's negative karma. The positive karma is virtue. And when you have all of these things happen, that's where you get the financial blessings and the financial opportunities and the mental and the physical and the spiritual. And we all on a spiritual journey. If you were to share a quote with us, because I know you love quotes, or what was the one that, what would you like to share? Share one with us that helps you, or affirmation or something that gets you through the day.
Well, for me, I think when I talk about health, I just don't mean your physical health. I mean mental health, emotional health. So the one that I like is that if you take your health for granted, the health that you've been given will take from you. So I just think it's very powerful because, a lot of people don't concentrate on just physical. Like you go to the doctor and they tell you that, your health is not good. But then what about your mental health? Like you have to heal that too, right? Emotionally, it's something that needs to be done on all levels so you can become whole again and be happy with yourself.
Absolutely. And here is something you may want to explore, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us on Divine Soul Journey with Dianne and Taz here. You want to find peace? Pursue. Ask the question. Why am I here? That's the biggest question. If you don't know why you're here on this earth, in this life, in this 100 years you've given of life, then you'll be lost. Totally lost. If no one knows, there's two dates. The Sadhguru, I believe I can't remember if it's Sadhguru, somebody had said there's two important dates. The day you were born and the day when you realize what your purpose is.
I think that was Mark Twain. Twain.
Okay, somebody else, I heard it. I didn't hear it from Mark Twain. I heard it from somebody else, one of the gurus. Then that's the two most important days. Or was it Steve Harvey, I think. But anyway, the point is, those are the two most important days. The day you discover why you're here on this earth. Because you didn't come here by chance. Not at all. So Taz is on that journey. I am on that journey. Ask the question. Your unconscious mind, the body, the universe, the cosmos, whatever you want to refer it as, is waiting to help you. Everything is inside of you. Everything about you is inside of you. You just have to unlock the door.
Yeah.
And you just have to say, okay, why am I here? What do I need to do? You start your spiritual path journey. I'm not convincing you, and I'm just telling you. At the end of the day, when you look at all the big guys, the successful people, they all, look at their hands. They're all wearing something, malas, all those things, beads, everything. They don't talk about their spiritual journey. But they speak to a lot of people. Oprah, everybody does it. Don't believe that they have the success just because. They've worked hard for it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They've worked hard for it. So this is what I wanted to say. I wanted to share Taz's story. And, she'll be back, I hope, and then to talk about more. And it's time for I'm waiting for her when she wants to share her story and her memoirs and her recipes and the quiche. I remember once I made a quiche recipe she gave to me, and we were talking about that recently. What you don't know, we have. Taz doesn't have it. But we have the opportunity where we can research everything we want ahead of time. She didn't have that then. But I tell you, she doesn't have the sight to do this. Yes, she's visually impaired legally, but that doesn't stop her. And you, Taz, are one of the most disciplined person I know. Like, you never gave up on your exercise. You never gave up on your food. You never gave up to the gym. And sometimes we're like, why are you going to the gym? You can't even walk. You never gave up on anything.
I would go on the wheelchair when I was using the wheelchair. I don't use the wheelchair now, but when I was, and they'd open the door at the YMCA, I'd go in and I'd wheel myself to a stationary bicycle, and I'd get on there and do 2 hours because that's all I could do. I mean, I couldn't use anything else. But, again, it was something I had to do. It was just inside me. So you got to have that in you, and you can find it, because I never thought I could. But, it comes also from being in that dark place. You don't want to go back. And I think for me, at least, that's what pushed me. I wanted to be better. I wanted to do whatever I could. It was about having control over my own health and my own life when I had lost all control. Because all of a sudden diabetes had invaded my body, and I was at the mercy of my diabetes. It controlled me. And I couldn't live like that. I needed to get that control back. And once I got that control back, I got control of my mind.
Absolutely.
My body, everything. And, so it was like, okay, diabetes is with me. It's like a love and hate relationship. I had to respect its boundaries and respect the fact that, it had moments where, it was going to do things to me. So I had to respect that and just follow the rules and do what needs to be done to keep my diabetes at bay.
Absolutely.
So these were the things that I needed to do for myself. It wasn't for anyone else. If it's for yourself, they say sometimes that, doctors will tell you, your spouse, your loved ones will tell you, you need to do this. And if you're going to do it because they're telling you to do it, it's not going to work. You have to do it. That's why I always say, find your why. You need to do it for yourself, because if you're doing it for yourself, you'll be successful.
Absolutely.
But you got to find that. And sometimes it means finding yourself before you even start the journey of healing.
Yes, absolutely. So on that note, I would like to say, find yourself, find your inner peace, find you, find your self-love. Appreciate who you are. Appreciate the breath that you have. Appreciate that you can live another day and the sun will come out tomorrow. So on that note, I would like to say thank you so much, Tazim Kanji, for being here with me. Love you, girl. You know that. I always have your back. I know sometimes I don't hear from her, but I know she's there. And say hi to your parents. Love your family. And I want to say to everyone here who's been with us, I hope Tazim's story inspired you for someone you know, yourself or someone you know, and you can help them. Let them listen to this show. Catch us on, this will be on other social media platforms and YouTube as well. Share it. Hear her story. And we want to hear your story too. So on that note, thank you so much, Taz. And that note, I'd like to say,
Dianne.
You're welcome, hon.
Thank you.
Aloha. Namaste. Sitaram. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to each and every one of you. And, in the words of Master Shah, heal your heart and it melts all blockages. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us on Love, Peace, and Harmony. Until next time on the Divine Soul Journey, this is Dianne and Taz saying, have an amazing evening. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dianne. Bye.
You're welcome.